Hello everybody, welcome back to our YouTube channel, the Sydney-Ghana SDA Church Health Department program we've entitled New Start. We've been talking about nutrition, exercise and water, and this month we've been talking a lot about sunshine and what it does for us, how much sunshine we should have, and exactly what we get from the sun, what we can do with the sun. And that is another very interesting topic as well, so I hope you stay tuned for it. Let's jump right straight into the video and discuss. Okay, so one very important topic when it comes to the sun is the topic of cancer, and a lot of people have a lot of concepts or precepts about the sun and how we get cancer and everything like that. So today we're going to be talking specifically about skin cancer, how we get it, how the cancer forms in the first place, and a little misconceptions when it comes to if you're a darker skin tone like I am, what you need to do in terms of sunscreen to protect yourself and in the long run to prevent skin cancer. So let's jump straight into talking about exactly how any kind of cancer forms. And to say, yeah, cancer, we have a lot of different types of cancer. The first is carcinoma. Carcinoma near to say baby in your skin, very surface level, or in your lining of your tissues. And see, for example, in the breast, in the lungs, in the colon. Another one is sarcoma. If it would be osteosarcoma, it is osteo is bone, and then sarcoma is of just the muscle, the connective tissue. Into sarcoma, not a bone, muscle, connective tissue, and everything like that. And see, if it would be osteosarcoma, which is what happens in the bone, and then liposarcoma, which is the fat cells in your body. And then your friend maybe leukemia. Leukemia just has to do with the bone and the blood. Or acute leukemia, blastic, and a few other things. And we also have lymphoma near of the lymph system. Into the lymph system, no, in other videos, no, we mentioned that they are drainage systems. Into fluid essentially it drains out of. Into if you're going to have a cancer of that place, it means that the fluid is being used for bad things. Essentially, there's melanoma, which is melanocytes, which is what we're going to specifically hone in today about skin cancer. And then we have myeloma, which is plasma cells in your bone marrow, and so it's in your bone. And then we have central nervous system cancers, which happens in the brain and the spinal cord. And then there's germ cells, tumors, which is reproductive cells, to say your ovaries, near testes, the cancer of those places. Okay, so cancer, and so there are two types of how we can classify or know exactly what kind of cancer. We have two types. We have benign and malignant. Benign are very slow to grow, and when they do grow, they don't spread to other parts. And to identify them, they look like little lumps or freckles in just some area. So they're also usually harmless. And when you go to the doctors to remove them, they're very easy to remove, mostly because they're in one place. In one place, it's a lump. You can just remove it, and that is it. Malignant, because they spread quite quickly and spread to many other different organs. Into say, and it happen spread all the way to your whole hand, and you'll be having cancer on your whole hand, essentially. And so, and then I quite in detail. And so, let's move on into how exactly these cancer cells they grow and flourish in our bodies like they do. All right, and see, with the way that cancer cells grow, they're very quite interesting creatures, I suppose, because this all happens when we spend too much time in the sun over time. And when this happens, if there be DNA and gene expression, essentially what it is that Eviano has many good benefits, as we've talked about. It helps us with our mood, with vitamin D, with our bones and the calcium, everything like that. That's great, but too much of everything is bad. And so the more UV rays is settling on your skin, the skin cells now you can't say in front of melanocytes now. They help you determine what color you're going to be. If you have a lot of melanin, you are a lot darker. If you have less melanin, you are like a lot fairer. Yeah, I should put it. And so when you spend too much time in the sun, there is a lot of UV rays penetrating the skin, and over time, this damages those cells. So those cells turn bad, I suppose, and this is what causes the cancer. So now they become cancerous cells that change the DNA of the skin to do something else that the skin is not supposed to do. So what they do is they initiate some sort of expansion. So allow say territory na it was say you take advantage of it. So they're going to start to spread. And what better way to spread than to migrate into vessels? The vessels are made, like the blood vessels are made to give us nutrients. Say vitamin D, vitamin Q, and it travel through. So the cancer cells think, where can I get my energy to grow and expand myself? And this is through the transportation of these vessels. So they hide in there and feed on sad nutrients now your blood system. And then they also cling to things called platelets. These platelets, they come up and seal the area because they create a clot. They're clotting factors. And so when they bind to these things, as we see in the image over here now, with the yellow things, when they bind that, it helps them not get pushed away by any other thing in the circulatory system, so that they can evade all the other immune system attacks, because the immune system attacks, blood lymphocytes, body, but once it's clinged to the platelets, it cannot be detached unless it detaches itself. So they're very clever in that sense, and they keep going and going and going. So they colonize. So the last stage is that once bloodstream, and we have blood everywhere in our body, so they will decide where to sit at one point, and where they decide to sit is going to be a very good place, luscious place, where there's a lot of cells to destroy, a lot of flowing rivers, like the vessels now kind of to feed on that pre-metastatic niche, which is very favorable environment for them to live in. So that's how cancer cells sort of regulate themselves to expand in our body. And how we're going to see that it grow, we doctors have stages. So stage 0 is it is in place. We see that it's there, but it hasn't grown yet. Stage 1 would be that it's a very small cancer tumor, but it hasn't really grown into any nearby tissues. When I say nearby tissues, say a happen with cheeks, and travel or forehead, or they're all the same tissue, but for you to understand what I'm trying to say, maybe and travel from cheek to your lips, because they're two different tissues. So then stage 2 and stage 3 are basically larger cancers. So you can see that the tumors are a lot larger. They look larger, like they're microscopic, so you need a microscope to look at them. Sometimes they're not as visible as we want them to be, but you can see that they're also spreading into the lymph nodes. Lymph nodes, they filter the lymph or the fluids that our body doesn't want. And then we have the last stage, which is stage 4, which is that it's spread to many different organs and it's just causing damage. And see, if it was found in your cheeks, now you have found it in your breast, in your thighs, in your feet, everywhere, and it starts to become very critical at this stage. So changing the topic a little bit for the rest of the video is the skin cancer. Skin cancer is termed as melanoma, and the reason being is melanin, how dark your skin is determined by the amount of melanocytes are in your skin. Melanocytes, they produce melanin. So the more time you spend in the sun over the course of a period of time, it damages the melanocytes, and they become cancerous cells. So whatever the skin was supposed to do in the very beginning to keep a protection layer of underground structures like your vessels, other tissues, and also to grow hair on top of it, also to do the excretion processes and everything. Everything is damaged and it becomes cancerous and now bad for your body. And this is influenced by UV exposure. UV exposure, I'm talking every single time you're in the sun, you're not covering your body, you don't have any sort of sunscreen on, and that is over a period of time. And see, we call something hallmarks of cancer in melanoma. Essentially, the ANSA, I didn't know even who say we a melanoma, and we've explained briefly with the overarching cancer and how they grow. But to start, they do cell proliferation. Cell proliferation is say omunya center say, okay, this is what's happening in my skin now. Now, recruitment. omo befa other cells aba beka omo ho a omo betimi aye a stronger gang so they be omo betimi asay nyoma mo omo say nyoma ni wi a na say evading apoptosis. Apoptosis is cell death. Na say cell death no said be ya sisi ano omo ko na engu ana say entimi say ana say omo adwuma no ntimi fulfill no na say immune cells na ebeba be ko agi ni peduano na akachi ne say now these kind of cells no is bad for us, our health needs. We are taking it out. They try as much as possible to stay alive by using mechanisms that, I mean, it's a whole lot of history behind that and study behind that. So if you get time, go check it out online. But for the sake of this video, I keep it short and simple. So they evade all the killing methods of the body and stay alive. And then they do angiogenesis, which is they build their own blood supply. Blood supply here, they'll find our circulatory system, the blood vessels, they live in it and they feed on the nutrients. So they be on and then move on to invasion. Invasion. Invasion here, so they start to spread to other places of your body. As I said before, say a on satia and a happen it will travel and then you see it in your breast, and that is where you start to see the mass damage being done. And then also the last thing is evasion, which is killing mechanism that the body is trying to do to keep the body alive instead of killing it. These cells, these cancer cells, try as much as possible to stay alive, and most of the time they get their way. They get to survive, and that is what makes cancer very dangerous. So I have a few questions that came up and would like to answer them just to summarize the whole cancer topic. And so the question is, whilst all types of skin cancer are less common in people of color, these outcomes are dramatically worse. What accounts for this gap? Essentially, diagnosis of cancer is very worse. The reason being is that cancer is not that common with darker skinned people. The reason being is, I think in the very first video we did mention that melanocytes, the ones that produce the melanin, the melanin is so good that it provides a natural skin sunscreen for us, and that is why sometimes people get the misconception, say, oh, black people don't need sunscreen, but we do, mostly because it's short-lived. Your skin is not making melanocytes all the time, and also the sun and its effects varies in certain times of the day. That is why we recommend some certain time to a certain time for you to be in the sun. This over time piles up, and then you start to see the changes. But then also the prognosis is worse because at times we don't make ourselves knowledgeable enough about what is going on with these things. Public awareness is very low. We don't educate ourselves too much. And then there's also a lower index of suspicion. Darker people, we don't get a lot of cancers, so I'm not going to go and check. So that is the kind of attitude sometimes we ought to eradicate. And also most of the time in darker skinned people, where we are trying to find the cancer, when we are suspicious of it, is not where we find them. So for example, skin cancer on a darker skinned person, you'd say, oh, just find it on the skin. But no, it can be difficult to find where it is, because it can just start as a simple mole, like a simple black dot to be also, and you can never probably get your mind on the fact that it is cancer until it is too late. The second question is, does having more melanin in the skin itself provide sufficient protection? As I said in the other slide, the melanin does provide a natural sunscreen, but the misconception here is that it does not give immunity against the UV rays and the damage. As much as you'd have a natural sunscreen, you have to put on extra sunscreen and be doing skin checks just to make sure that these cancer cells are not forming without you knowing them. And so, no, it is not sufficient to have just melanin. You need to be checking, you need to be putting on sunscreen as a second layer of protection. Alright, so to bring it all to a close, sunshine and melanoma, balance is key. Too much of everything is bad, and it does apply same to the sun. We have heard in the other 3 videos of sunshine the benefits, and we know the benefits. It's good for vitamin D, for bone, for immune system, for anti-cancerous properties. It's good for our mood, our sleep, how we conduct ourselves, the energy levels. But then also there is risk of too much exposure. You being too much underneath the sun means that it can damage your DNA and your skin cells, which changes the way that the skin is supposed to act and behave. And so sunburns are also a risk as well. And so safe sun practices for all skin tones would be that you always use sunscreen whenever you are in the sun. Faka lotions now as another skincare routine, always put into practice. I know I have to do better at that. Also, the other thing is you wear protective clothing. Yeah, because it doesn't mean say like take off all your clothes and just go stand outside in the sun. You need to still protect the sun, your skin from the sun, but your skin can absorb in other places in your body. So make sure you're always cover your face with hats, sunglasses before your eyes, and then long sleeves for your arms as well. And then also avoid peak hours. So between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. is when the sun is at its brightest. Now, this is not this is subjective to some geographical locations. If you're in winter and if you're in a mountainous place, this is gonna vary. So in winter, the sun is not as bright or is not as penetrative. But then again, there are other places like snowy mountains or where it's mountainous and steep. The sun will very, very damaging. So there's some hours you want to stay away from. And then there's also check hidden spots. So sometimes we have a conception of where the certain cancers should be, and sometimes they're not supposed to be there. In a sense, check everywhere. Just go see your GP or your dermatologist, and they can do these checks for you if you do not know what to look for. And so I hope that we have learned something from the whole series, and we're going to continue living healthy and keeping ourselves away from extreme consequences of good things. And so these are the references, and I would also like to encourage you that all these videos that we put together, they are snippets of the big pond information out there on the internet. And so I encourage you to do check it out, do some research about it if you are interested. Comment in the chat box if you have any questions, any suggestions. We will be moving on to another topic of another series, and so we hope you really enjoyed this. Also, if you have at the District TV we have dedicated pastors and elders to help do the prayers and offer any kind of help as a church. And so I hope you're blessed and stay tuned for the others.